Bonjour. Today I am here to talk about variant readings found in the manuscripts relevant for the Palion Quran project in the Royal Library of Denmark in Copenhagen and the Research Library of Erfurt Gotha. In that regard, I want to present two manuscripts which the Berlin group of the Paleo Quran project worked on. First, the fragment Codex Arab 39, now in possession of the Royal Library Denmark, and second, the fragment A434, owned by the Research Library of Erfurt Gotha. During my presentation, I also want to point out some problems regarding the identification process of variant readings in the manuscripts, which are open for discussion. Important for the identification process of the variant readings in the manuscripts is to know that the canonization process of Ibn Mujahid and the settlement on 7 reading systems occurred in the early 10th century, meaning that it is likely that most of the manuscripts relevant for the Paleo Quran project were written before the standardization process started by Ibn Mujahid. Most of these manuscripts are not carbon dated and do not have a colophon, meaning that the precise date when these manuscripts were written is unknown at the moment. This means that I am fully aware that it is quite unhistorical to connect a certain reader or reading system mentioned in the Islamic tradition to readings in the manuscript I want to talk about, as these manuscripts may or may not have been written before the mentioned reader established said reading, or the reading was connected to said reader. But for reasons of comprehension and to grasp the level of circulation of said reading, I will nevertheless mention the persons or groups the Islamic tradition attributes certain readings to. The Royal Library Denmark in Copenhagen owns 7 fragments in Kufi writing style that can be connected to the city of Fustat, and therefore are interesting for the Paleo Quran project, namely Codex Arab 36 to 42. These fragments were bought in the year 1626 by Frederick Bockwald, presumably in Egypt. In the 18th century, these fragments came into the possession of the Royal Library in Denmark. The Danish Orientalist Jacob Georg Christian Adler released in the year 1780 his work Descriptio Codicum Quorundum Cuficorum, which presents also the first analysis of these fragments. In this work, he describes the form of the letters in the manuscripts and compared them to the printed Arabic text version of the Quran, released by Abraham Hinkelmann in Hamburg in the year 1694. One of the more interesting fragments of this selection is Codex Arab 39. The fragment Codex Arab 39 consists of 58 folios, is written on parchment, and lists the Quranic text in 5 lines. The fragment covers the verses from Surah 21, verse 53 to Surah 22, verse 37. Every 5th and 10th verse is marked by a more distinctive verse separator. The verse separation in the manuscript differs in 5 occasions from the Kufic verse separation system that is used in most Quranic print versions today. Furthermore, the verse separation system proposed by this manuscript does not match any system known today. In the manuscript, few diacritic dots are used, mostly the letters Ya, Ta, and Ba are marked. At the moment, it is unclear why the diacritic dots in this manuscript are added in some cases and left out in others. The readings in this manuscript are marked with red, yellow, blue, and green color. Therefore, at least 4 readings are suggested to be read in this manuscript. The red color marks the primary reading of this manuscript, which in general appears to be a reading the Islamic tradition connects to the city of Medina, and in that regard, in most cases, to the reader or reading school of Abu Ja'far, who is not listed by Ibn Mujahid as one of the 7 readers. The yellow color is used to express, firstly, a secondary reading of a number of words besides the primary reading, and secondly, readings that apply to grammar rules, for example, the plural suffix him or hum, where the yellow color marks the readings himu or humu. These markings of variant readings related to grammar problems are often marked in this manuscript, but not always. It is likely that this inconsistency is due to the writer having simply forgotten to put the marks in all of the intended places in the manuscript. How and if the secondary reading is connected to the marked grammar rules cannot be said at the moment, as the Islamic tradition associates many different readers to the variant readings marked in yellow color in this manuscript. The only common feature of the yellow marked variant readings is that they are in general in the Islamic tradition Islamic tradition connected to readers from the Mecca and Basra region. The blue color expresses a third reading, besides the red and yellow marked ones, that follows generally the reading ascribed to the canonic reader Hamza. There is only one exception, which is related to the plural suffix him. In that case, the blue color describes an alternative reading to the plural suffix marked in red color him and in yellow color himu, and proposes in blue to read hum instead. The Islamic tradition mentions that the reader Hamza suggests to read the plural suffix that is in general read as him to be read as hum only in the three words, namely alayhim, ilayhim, and ladayhim. But the blue color in Codex Arab 39 suggests to read even in other words hum instead of the general reading him or himu. This could have different reasons. It is possible that this restriction to certain words was not known to the writer, or that the blue reading is not actually the reading system of Hamza that Ibn Mujahid proposed, but a slightly different reading that can but must not be connected to the city of Kufa. It is also imaginable that the blue color in case of the plural suffix is only used because the yellow color was already taken to express another non-related reading. The green color is not generally used to express readings in this manuscript, but to mark the letter Hamza. But in this manuscript, it is also used on rare occasions to mark readings when the colors red, yellow, and blue are already taken by other variant readings to add a fourth reading. On some instances, it is also used to mark assimilation rules. This manuscript contains, besides variant readings mentioned in the works of the Islamic tradition, also previously unknown variants for some words and some verses. There are 3 occasions where the visual text or the red dots that represent the primary reading differ from the variant readings known through the Islamic tradition. Most noteworthy is the variant reading in folio 19 verso in Surah 21 verse 90, where the manuscript reads وَكَانُوا, whereas the majority reading reads إِنَّهُمْ كَانُوا. The problem in these cases where a reading is mentioned in the manuscripts is the question if these are really readings that are nowhere else mentioned, or are they mistakes made by the writer? For the moment, this question cannot be answered, and only after a survey of a larger number of manuscripts, it might be possible to have an answer to that question. The manuscript also suggests variant readings. The manuscript also suggests variant readings that are in no other work mentioned as alternative readings. For example, in folio 13 recto in Surah 21 verse 80, the manuscript shows with yellow dots the readings San'atan and Libusin, which are not cited in any other work, and with red dots San'ata and Labusin, which are read as the majority reading of today. On the same folio in line 5, there's even a larger problem. The word lituhsinakum, as it is read today in the majority reading of Hafs and Asim, is marked with green diacritic points to be read as mentioned lituhsinakum. Yellow diacritic dots propose to read liyuhsinakumu, a reading connected to readers from Mecca, Medina, and other regions. The problem is, how does the red dotted primary reading of the manuscript intend to read this word? The Islamic tradition also mentions the alternative reading li nuhsinakum, which is connected to the Kufan reader Shu'ba. As li tuhsinakum and li yuhsinakumu are already marked with other colors, it is possible that li nuhsinakum can be read in this case. But as it's not marked in any way, this could be interpreted as falsifying the evidence in the manuscript. Another question would be, why is this one of the few instances where a green color is applied to express a reading? It is possible that the intention of the writer was to add the diacritic dots on the letter ta in the blue color, but as his writing instrument was not clean, it mixed up with the yellow color becoming green. But it is also possible that the diacritic dots were added intentionally in green to showcase the connection between the green-marked phenomena. In folio 6 recto in Surah 21 verse 67, the manuscript shows 5 different variant readings on one word. Whereas the primary reading in red reads Uffin, as do readers from Medina and some from Kufa, the yellow color suggests Uffan and Uffu ascribed to readers from Mecca and Basra, the blue color proposes Uffi connected to readers from Basra and Kufa, and the green color offers Uffa, which has links to some readers from Mecca, Basra, and other cities. The question here is, why are that many readings expressed in Codex Arab 39, and why exactly on this word? Was this manuscript a teaching device where a teacher showed his student different readings, how they are written and read? Did the manuscript travel and many different hands did add the reading they knew or used? Or was the manuscript used as a form of encyclopedic collection of Quranic variant readings? These are also questions that cannot be answered at the moment. In folio 1 recto in Surah 21 verse 54, a green dot is used to show an assimilation rule that the Islamic tradition connects to the reader Abu Amr and Yaqub from Basra. Instead of reading the words qala lakat, the green reading proposes to read qal lakat. Therefore, the green reading may have a connection to readings related to Basra. A rather unique reading that can be found in folio 33 verso in Surah 22 verse 5. Whereas diacritic dots in blue color mark the majority reading of the day, linubayyina and wanukirru, diacritic dots in red color indicate to read liyubayyina and wayukirru. Usually the rare diacritic dots in this manuscript are marked with black color, as can be seen in line 4 on the word fi. The proposed readings with red diacritic dots seemingly belong together. The Islamic tradition mentions li yubayyina and wa yukirru as a reading used by Ibn Abi Ubla, but more interestingly as a grammatically and therefore hypothetically possible reading in this verse. It is up to debate why such readings are added in this manuscript by a seemingly later hand, and why exactly in these colors. It appears that this manuscript had some sort of encyclopedic value for the writer or the writers of the various variant readings, as can be seen by the variety of said readings. Whereas there are manuscripts like this one where the dominant reading used is difficult to fathom, there are also other manuscripts related to Fustat that are notably easier to grasp or rather understand. One such manuscript would be the Gotha fragment A434 that I would like to talk about now. But first, some general information on the manuscripts in the research library of Erfurt Gotha. More than 2,500 mostly Arabic manuscripts were bought by Ulrich Jasper Seetzen in the 18th and early 19th century on his travels to the Middle East on behalf of the Duke of Saxony Gotha-Altenburg. For the Paleo-Quran project, only 37 manuscripts are relevant, as they were seemingly bought in Cairo. Most of these fragments are rather small, spanning from 1 to 8 folios, with the largest fragment being A434 with 25 folios. Fragment A434 is written on parchment and has 2 parts, one containing a seemingly later added Quranic Naskhi text and the other the Kufi text relevant for the Paleo-Quran project. The Naskhi text spans from folio 1 recto to 7 verso, containing verses from the beginning of Surah 3 to verse 87, and folio 25R, which marks the end of the surah. The text varies from 6 to 10 lines regarding on the folio. The reading used in the later added text appears to be a mixture of the readings of Abu Amr and Ibn Kathir. The for the Paleo-Quran project relevant text in Kufi scripture begins in folio 8 recto and ends with folio 24 verso, spanning from Surah 3 verse 134 to verse 197. The Quranic text is written on 6 lines on the folios. The system of the verse separation in this manuscript follows the Kufic system, and every 5th and 10th verse are marked with a special verse separator. Only few diacritic dots are marked in the manuscript, and mostly in cases where Kufa and Basra read different readings that are affected by diacritic dots. In contrast to Codex Arab 39, this manuscript has marks only expressing one reading, namely that of the canonic reader Hamza for the most part. But even though the manuscript follows a reading in general, there are some noteworthy phenomena that have to be discussed. In folio 14, recto in Surah 3, verse 156, the manuscript proposes the reading of Rozayan, which is mentioned in the Islamic tradition, Islamic works on variant readings as the reading of Al-Hasan al-Basri, al-Zuhri, and a non-canonic transmitter of Hafs and Asim from Kufa, whereas the majority reading is Ghuzan. This means, even though the variant differs from the reading of the Kufan reader Hamza, the reading suggested by the manuscript is possibly somehow connected to Kufa. In folio 12, verso in Surah 3, verse 154, the manuscript suggests the reading Ammatan, whereas the majority reading is Amanatan. The word Ammatan is not mentioned as variant reading in this verse in any work of the Islamic tradition. This is probably a writing error, but has also to be considered to some degree as a reading. The line between writing error and reading is not clearly drawn. It is clear that this case has to be documented, but the question is how such a case is to be treated. And this is also something that has to be discussed. In folio 23, verso in Surah 3, verse 193, the manuscript proposes the reading Tawaffina that is not mentioned in any work of the Islamic tradition, whereas the majority reading is Tawaffana. In theory, this could also be regarded as a writing error, but it is more likely to be regarded as a reading, as similar variant readings can be observed in the tradition and the manuscripts. In folio 24, verso in Surah 3, verse 195, the word fi is missing, or was eradicated, as the manuscript lets a certain place quite possibly for the word fi. But as it is not written in that place, is the missing word to be treated as a variant reading or as a slip made by the writer of the manuscript? What I want to say is that in some cases the line between variant reading and writing error is quite blurry. In conclusion, I hope that I have made it clear why it is important to study these manuscripts thoroughly, meaning word to word. There is no doubt that there exists a correlation between the reading systems mentioned in the Islamic tradition and the readings proposed by the manuscripts of Fustat, even though the reading systems of the Islamic tradition do not fit oftentimes completely into the manuscripts for whatever reasons. Furthermore, the manuscripts contain even more knowledge on variant readings than the Islamic works that survived or are accessible today have to offer. Even readings that in some works on Arabic grammar of the Quran can be regarded as hypothetically possible readings to use are marked in these manuscripts, suggesting that these variant readings were actually in circulation. This means that our work in the Paleo-Quran project, documenting the variant readings in these manuscripts, complements the Islamic tradition accessible today, as lost knowledge regarding the reading of the Quranic text is newly discovered. Thank you.